Hello student. In this video we will solve a few example sums using formulae. Let's go on to the example sum. Example 1. A commenced his cloth business on 1st April 2022 with a capital of 30,000. On 31st March 2023 his assets were worth rupees 50,000 and his liabilities were 10,000 rupees. Find out his closing capital and profits earned during the year. So it's given that the opening capital is equal to rupees 30,000. Closing assets is equal to rupees 50,000 and closing liabilities is equal to rupees 10,000. Now closing capital is equal to closing assets minus the closing liabilities, which is equal to rupees 50,000 minus rupees 10,000, which is rupees 40,000. So this is a closing capital. Profit earned for the period, closing capital is equal to opening capital plus additional capital minus drawings plus profit. So this is the equation. So the closing capital is given as 40,000. We've derived that the closing capital is 40,000 is equal to opening capital 30,000. There is no additional capital in drawings plus profit. Therefore, profit is equal to 10,000 rupees. $40,000 minus 30,000. Example 2. Mohan started business on 1st April 2022 with a capital of rupees 10,000 and borrowed rupees 3,000 from a friend. He earned a profit of rupees 5,000 during the year ended 31st March 2023. He withdrew cash rupees 4,000 for personal use. What is his capital on 31st March 2023? So the closing capital they've asked for. It's given that the opening capital is equal to rupees 10,000. The profit of the business is equal to rupees 5,000 and drawings is equal to rupees 4,000. So the formulae is closing capital is equal to opening capital plus additional capital minus drawings plus the profit. So closing capital is equal to 10,000. There is no additional capital. The drawings is 4,000 plus the profit is 5,000, which is equal to 11,000 rupees. So this is the closing capital. Example 3. On 31st March 2023, the total assets and external liabilities were rupees 2 lakh and rupees 6,000 respectively. During the year, the proprietor introduced capital of rupees 20,000 and withdrawn rupees 12,000 for personal use. He made a profit of 20,000 during the year. Calculate the capital on 1st April 2022. So they've asked us to calculate the opening capital. It's given that the closing assets is equal to rupees 2 lakh and the closing liabilities is equal to rupees 6,000. Therefore, closing capital is equal to closing assets minus the closing liabilities, which is rupees 2 lakh minus 6,000, which is rupees 1,94,000. Additional capital is 20,000. Drawings is equal to rupees 12,000, and profit is equal to rupees 20,000. So we have the equation that closing capital is equal to opening capital plus additional capital minus drawings plus the profit. So closing capital we found out to be 1,94,000 is equal to opening capital we need to find out plus 20,000 additional capital minus the drawings of 12,000 rupees plus profit of 20,000 rupees. Therefore, opening capital is equal to 1,94,000 minus 20,000 plus 12,000 minus 20,000. So this is equal to 1,66,000. So the opening capital is rupees 1,66,000. Example 4. Calculate the amount of external liabilities as on 31st March 2023 in each of the following cases. So they have asked us to find out the closing liabilities. Okay, let's do the first subdivision. A. On 31st March 2023, the total assets and capital were 15 lakh and rupees 8,50,000 respectively. So for A, the closing liabilities is equal to the closing assets, which is rupees 15 lakh minus the closing capital, which is 8,50,000 rupees. So closing liabilities is rupees 6,50,000. B subdivision. On 1st April 2022, Ajay started a business with a capital of 2 lakh and a loan of rupees 50,000 borrowed from a friend. During 2022-23, he earned a profit of rupees 50,000, and on 31st March 2023, the total assets were rupees 6 lakh. Let's find out the closing capital. Closing capital is equal to opening capital, which is rupees 2 lakh, plus the additional capital, which is not there, minus the drawings also is not there, plus the profit. Profit is 50,000 rupees. So the closing capital is 2,50,000 rupees. The closing assets is given as rupees 6 lakh. Therefore, closing liabilities is equal to closing assets minus the closing capital, which is rupees 6 lakh minus rupees 2,50,000, which is equal to rupees 3,50,000. The C subdivision. On 1st April 2022, Sohan started a business with a capital of rupees 5 lakh and a loan of rupees 2,50,000 borrowed from a friend. During 2022-23, he earned a profit of rupees 2,50,000 and introduced additional capital of 3 lakh. He had withdrawn rupees 1,50,000 for his personal use. On 31st March 2023, the total assets were rupees 20 lakh. So let's find out the closing capital. Closing capital is equal to opening capital, which is rupees 5 lakh, plus the additional capital, which is rupees 3 lakh, minus the drawings, which is rupees 1,50,000, plus the profit, which is rupees 2,50,000. So the closing capital is equal to rupees 9 lakh. Closing liabilities is equal to closing assets, which is rupees 20 lakh, minus the closing capital, which we found out to be 9 lakh rupees. Therefore, the closing liabilities is equal to rupees 11 lakh. Example 5. Calculate total liability and owner's capital at the end. Total liability at the end is closing liability plus closing capital. It's given that the owner's capital in the beginning is rupees 60,000. Creditors at the end is rupees 50,000. Revenue earned during the period is rupees 70,000. And expenses during the period is 65,000 rupees. So we have the profit as revenue minus the expenses, which is equal to 70,000 rupees minus 65,000 rupees, which is equal to rupees 5,000. Closing capital is equal to opening capital plus the additional capital minus the drawings plus the profit. The opening capital is given as rupees 60,000. There is no additional capital and drawings, and the profit we just found out to be rupees 5,000. Therefore, the closing capital is rupees 65,000. The total liability at the end is equal to closing liability plus the closing capital. Closing liability at the end, it's given that the creditors at the end is rupees 50,000 plus the closing capital is rupees 65,000, which totals up to 1,15,000 rupees. So we completed the video where we saw 5 example sums which we solved using formulae.